He thought he was just a doorman until he carried his daughter. The lobby of the Ardent Plaza gleamed with polished marble and quiet power. Nathaniel Cross, billionaire CEO of Crosstech Industries, strode in mid-call, impatience stitched into every step. His day had been a battlefield of mergers and egos. A sudden outage halted the elevators. Groans rippled through the crowd. Nathaniel glanced at his watch, then at his daughter, Lily, seated in her wheelchair, eyes calm but tired. The stairs loomed like a punishment. Before Nathaniel could react, the building's doorman stepped forward. "I've got her," the man said gently. The doorman moved with deliberate care, bending just enough to gather Lily into his arms as though she were something fragile and irreplaceable. His uniform jacket creased at the elbows as he adjusted his grip, one arm supporting her back, the other tucked securely beneath her knees. He did not rush. Every step he took seemed measured against the rise and fall of her chest, his pace unconsciously syncing with her breathing. He spoke to her in a low, steady voice, words soft and unhurried, as if volume alone could shatter her. The stairwell echoed faintly with the sound of his boots, a rhythm slow and reassuring. Nathaniel followed behind them, hands half raised, unsure whether to help or simply stay out of the way. The weight of his own helplessness pressed against his ribs harder than any physical burden ever had. He was a man accustomed to solving problems with a phone call, a signature, or a sharp command. Yet here he was, reduced to a silent witness, watching another man do what he could not. The climb was long, longer than Nathaniel remembered from the countless times he had taken the elevator without a second thought. The lights flickered slightly on the second landing, casting shadows that stretched and shrank with each step. Lily's head rested against the doorman's shoulder, her small fingers loosely gripping the fabric of his jacket as if it were an anchor. Her breathing hitched once, then steadied again when he murmured something gentle, words Nathaniel couldn't quite hear but instinctively trusted. Sweat beaded at the doorman's temple, yet his expression remained calm, focused entirely on the child in his arms. Nathaniel noticed how the man shifted his weight subtly whenever Lily stirred, compensating without disturbing her, as though his body had memorized the language of carrying someone precious. By the time they reached the third landing, Nathaniel's legs ached, but the doorman did not slow. Instead, he adjusted Lily slightly, careful not to wake her fully. Then Lily opened her eyes and smiled, a small, unexpected curve of light in the dim stairwell. "You carry like my dad used to," she said, her voice thin but certain. The words landed heavily, echoing louder than any footstep. The doorman paused just for a heartbeat, as if the sentence had reached somewhere deep inside him. His jaw tightened, then relaxed, and he swallowed before answering. "That's a good way to be carried," he replied quietly, his voice steady despite the sudden sheen in his eyes. He resumed climbing, but something had shifted. Nathaniel saw it in the way the man held Lily a fraction closer, as though honoring a memory that wasn't his but had somehow become his responsibility. Each step after that felt charged with meaning, as if the stairwell itself were bearing witness. Nathaniel felt a sharp twist of guilt, remembering all the times he had been too busy, too distracted, too confident that there would always be another moment later. He had loved Lily fiercely, but love, he realized, did not always translate into presence. Watching the doorman climb, Nathaniel understood that strength was not always loud or visible. Sometimes it was quiet endurance, a willingness to carry a burden without complaint, to offer comfort without recognition. By the time they reached their floor, Nathaniel's throat burned with unshed words. The doorman stopped at the door, waiting patiently while Nathaniel fumbled with his keys. When the door finally opened, the man stepped inside without being asked, gently lowering Lily onto the couch as though setting down a promise. He adjusted a cushion beneath her head, smoothing her hair back with a tenderness that felt almost sacred. Nathaniel stood there, humbled, realizing that in this moment, a stranger had become the strongest person in the room, not because of muscle or authority, but because he knew how to hold someone when it mattered most. The elevator doors parted on the fifth floor with the soft mechanical sigh of money pretending to be discreet. Nathaniel Cross stepped out first, one hand still resting protectively on Lily's shoulder. The hallway smelled faintly of lemon polish and something older. Old money, old secrets, the kind of scent expensive carpet gave off after 20 years of quiet footsteps. Behind him, the doorman carried Lily's small overnight bag, as though it were made of glass. The man moved with the economical grace of someone who had once been trained to run toward danger rather than away from it. Nathaniel had noticed it downstairs in the lobby. The posture, the way the shoulders stayed square even when bending to pick up the bag, the faint limp he tried to hide when he thought no one was watching. They walked in silence toward apartment 5B. Lily's sneakers squeaked once against the marble. She clutched her favorite stuffed fox tighter, its one remaining black button eye staring up at Nathaniel accusingly. He hadn't replaced the missing eye yet. Another small failure to add to the ledger. Halfway down the corridor, Nathaniel slowed. The doorman, tall, late 40s, skin the color of dark walnut, adjusted his grip on the bag and waited without comment. That was when Nathaniel saw it. The sleeve of the Navy uniform had ridden up an inch or two. Along the inside of the man's left forearm ran a scar, jagged, thick at one end, tapering into a thin white line like a lightning bolt that had lost its nerve. The edges were raised and uneven, the kind of mark that spoke of torn metal and degree burns rather than a clean surgical incision. Nathaniel's stomach executed a slow, nauseating roll. Memory arrived uninvited, sharp as the shard of glass that must have made that scar. 7 years earlier, Crosstech's subsidiary plant in Newark, Industrial Solvents Division, a night shift supervisor had ignored 3 separate low-level pressure warnings. A valve cracked. A mist of flammable solvent met an exposed heating element. Within 90 seconds, the West Wing became an orange cathedral of flame. The automatic sprinklers never activated. A maintenance contractor had postponed the annual inspection to save budget. 6 workers died. 14 were injured, 3 critically. Nathaniel had been in Singapore when the first call came. By the time his private jet touched down at Teterboro, the lawyers were already drafting language. We deeply regret. Full cooperation with authorities. Appropriate compensation. One of the survivors, a security guard, had re-entered the building 6 times. No breathing apparatus. No fire-resistant suit. Just a wet rag over his mouth and pure, stupid courage. He carried 2 administrative assistants out on his shoulders, then went back for a machine operator whose legs had been crushed under a fallen beam. On the 7th attempt, the roof truss collapsed. A steel flange the size of a dining table caught him across the forearm and tore through to bone. He still made it out. Barely. The man's name had been redacted in most of the public filings. The settlement was generous by legal standards, 7 figures, non-disclosure agreement, lifetime medical. Nathaniel had signed the stack of documents in the back of the Maybach without reading past the first page. He remembered the smell of new leather and the faint tremor in his own hand. He told himself it was jet lag. He had never met the guard, never thanked him, never even seen a photograph. Until now. The doorman reached the door of 5B, set Lily's bag down with care, then straightened. He didn't knock. This wasn't his first time escorting someone to this particular apartment. Nathaniel could tell from the practiced motion of retrieving the key card from his breast pocket. Lily tugged at Nathaniel's sleeve. "Daddy, can we go inside now? My fox is tired." "In a moment, sweetheart." Nathaniel's eyes hadn't left the scar. The man noticed. Of course he did. He let the sleeve fall back into place, but the movement was deliberate, neither hurried nor ashamed. He met Nathaniel's gaze levelly. No hostility, no plea, just recognition, quiet and complete. "What's your name?" Nathaniel asked. His voice came out rougher than intended. "Marcus Reed." 2 words, no title, no sir. No attempt to soften the moment. Just the name, delivered like a card placed face up on the table. Nathaniel felt heat rise in his throat. He wanted to ask a dozen things at once. Are you still in pain? Did the settlement cover the surgeries? Do you hate me? But every question sounded obscene in his head. Instead, he said the only thing that didn't feel like a lie. "Thank you." Marcus Reed regarded him for a long second. Something flickered behind the steady brown eyes, memory, maybe, or fatigue, or simple indifference. Then he gave the smallest nod, almost imperceptible. "For what it's worth," Marcus said quietly, "I didn't do it for the paycheck, or for you." He turned the key card over in his palm once, then slid it into the reader. The lock clicked green. He pushed the door open and stepped aside. Lily darted forward, Fox under one arm, already chattering about the view from the big windows. Nathaniel lingered in the doorway. Marcus remained in the hall, posture straight, hands now clasped behind his back in the classic at-ease position of someone who once wore a different kind of uniform. "Mr. Reed," Nathaniel said. Marcus waited. "If there's anything you need, anything at all." The other man's mouth curved, not quite a smile. "I need the same thing everyone else needs, Mr. Cross. A quiet shift in tomorrow to look a lot like today." He inclined his head once, polite and final, then turned and walked back toward the elevator. The faint limp was visible again now that he wasn't trying to hide it. Each step measured, each step earned. Nathaniel watched until the elevator doors closed. Inside the apartment, Lily had already climbed onto the leather sofa and was pressing her nose to the glass, fogging it with excitement. "Look, Daddy, you can see the whole river." Nathaniel closed the door behind him. The lock engaged with a soft, expensive thunk. He stood there a moment, hand still on the knob, feeling the ghost weight of a signature he had made 7 years ago. The scar wasn't on his arm, but it might as well have been. He crossed the room, sat beside his daughter and pulled her close. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and airplane. For the first time in weeks, he let himself exhale fully. Outside, the Hudson moved slowly south toward the harbor, carrying its invisible cargo of memory and consequence. Somewhere below in the lobby, Marcus Reed returned to his post. He tugged his sleeve down one more time, habit now, not concealment, and resumed watching the doors. Quiet shift. Tomorrow much like today. That was enough. The name landed between them like a coin tossed into still water. Marcus Reed. 3 syllables that carried 7 years of ash and liability waivers. Nathaniel felt the air in the narrow service stairwell thicken. They hadn't taken the main corridor after all. Marcus had gestured toward the unmarked steel door beside the elevators with a quiet "maintenance access is faster, sir. Fewer cameras." Nathaniel had followed without argument. Lily was already inside the apartment with the nanny who'd arrived 10 minutes early, unpacking stuffed animals and asking about dinner. This conversation, whatever it was going to be, didn't need an audience. Now the 2 men stood one landing below 5B, fluorescent tube flickering overhead, the smell of industrial cleaner and old concrete pressing in. Marcus had stopped on the half landing, one hand resting lightly on the railing. The scar was covered again, sleeve tugged down, but Nathaniel could still see its ghost beneath the navy fabric. "You were at the Riverline plant," Nathaniel said. It wasn't a question. Marcus met his eyes without blinking. "Yes, sir." The honorific landed like a slap, polite, distant, weaponized by its very correctness. Nathaniel exhaled through his nose. "The report said 12 people made it out because of you. 6 on your back, the rest guided or carried in pieces. Said you went back 7 times. Said the roof came down on the 8th. Marcus gave the smallest shrug, the movement of a man who'd long ago stopped needing anyone to tell his story back to him. "Report got the numbers right. Rest is detail. They also said you were denied the disability pension." Nathaniel's voice stayed level, but his pulse was. Technicality. Something about the workers' comp claim being filed after the 30-day window because the hospital social worker misclassified your injury as pre-existing. Marcus looked away for the first time, down the stairwell toward the next landing where a red fire hose cabinet sat bolted to the wall. "Paperwork," he said simply. "Happens." It shouldn't have happened. The words came out sharper than Nathaniel intended. He immediately regretted them. They sounded like absolution he hadn't earned. Marcus turned his head back slowly. With respect, Mr. Cross, you don't get to decide what should have happened. You weren't there. Nathaniel felt the rebuke settle somewhere under his ribs. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. I read the depositions. I approved the final settlement figure. I signed the NDA that gagged everyone, including the union rep who tried to push your case back into arbitration. I know, Marcus said. No heat in it, just fact. Silence stretched again, longer this time. Somewhere above them a door opened and closed. Footsteps receded down carpeted hallway, the building breathing around them. Nathaniel leaned one shoulder against the cold cinderblock wall. Why are you still here, doing this job? Marcus considered the question as though no one had ever asked it before. Pays the rent, keeps the lights on. Insurance is decent and I like the quiet hours. He paused, then added, softer, also I get to see who comes and goes, faces, names. Sometimes they match the ones I remember from deposition photos. Nathaniel felt the skin along his jaw tighten. You recognized me in the lobby. First time I saw you in person, yeah. Marcus's mouth curved, just a fraction, not quite a smile. You've aged better than the headlines suggested. Nathaniel almost laughed, almost. I've had better years. Haven't we all? Another beat. Nathaniel straightened off the wall. The pension denial, I didn't know the details until last year. One of the board members mentioned it during a restructuring review, said it was unfortunate optics. I had legal pull the file. They told me the window had closed, appeal period expired, nothing could be done retroactively. Marcus nodded once, as though confirming a weather report. That's what they told me too. I can have it reopened, Nathaniel said. The offer came out too fast, too eager. I can have the firm file a motion to vacate the technicality. New medical evidence, new counsel, whatever it takes. You shouldn't be. Stop. The single word cut through cleanly. Marcus's voice hadn't risen, but the stairwell suddenly felt smaller. I'm not asking for a rescue, he said. I didn't ask 7 years ago either. I did what I did because people were screaming inside a burning building, not because I was calculating long-term disability benefits. Nathaniel felt heat crawl up his neck. I'm not trying to buy anything. Aren't you? The question hung there naked. Marcus took one step closer, not aggressive, just enough to close some of the distance. Let me tell you what I learned in that fire, Mr. Cross. People don't need your guilt. They need their bills paid on time, their kids fed, their pain managed before it turns chronic. Guilt is cheap. It costs you nothing and changes nothing. What costs something is writing the check before the cameras show up. Or after. Doesn't matter as long as it's not conditional. Nathaniel swallowed. What do you want then? Marcus studied him for a long moment. I want you to remember my name the next time someone in a boardroom says, acceptable loss. I want you to remember it when the next plant manager cuts corners on maintenance to make quarterly numbers. I want you to remember it when your lawyers tell you a 30-day window is more important than a man's arm. He stepped back, hand returning to the railing. That's all. Nathaniel couldn't speak for several seconds. When he did, his voice was rough. I remember it now. Good. Marcus turned toward the stairs leading down. Lily's waiting. She'll want to show you the fox's new spot on the windowsill. He started down. Marcus. Marcus paused, one foot on the next step. If you ever change your mind about the pension or anything else, my direct line doesn't go through assistants. You call, I answer. Marcus looked back over his shoulder. I know where to find you, Mr. Cross. 5th floor. Apartment B, big windows, nice view of the river. He continued down, steady steps, faint limp, no hurry. Nathaniel stayed where he was until the echo of Marcus's footfalls disappeared around the lower landing. Only then did he turn and climb the last half flight to the door that led back to carpet and central heating and his daughter's laughter. He paused with his hand on the push bar. The past wasn't done collecting its debts. It had just presented the first invoice. And it hadn't asked for payment in money. Nathaniel stood just inside the threshold of apartment 5B, door still ajar, letting the hallway light spill across the polished oak floor. Lily had already crossed the wide living room and was kneeling in front of Marcus, who had crouched to her level the moment she ran back out with the stuffed fox dangling by one paw. "Thank you for carrying my bag, Mr. Marcus," she said solemnly, extending her small hand the way she'd seen adults do in boardrooms and charity galas. "You're very strong, like a superhero, but nicer because you didn't make me fly too fast." Marcus accepted the handshake with grave formality, his large palm swallowing hers without closing. "You're welcome, Miss Lily, and thank you for trusting me to carry your fox. He's a brave traveler." Lily beamed, then darted back toward the floor-to-ceiling windows to show her new guardian the view of tugboats sliding past the battery. Nathaniel watched the exchange from 6 feet away, arms folded, feeling something shift behind his sternum, something that wasn't guilt this time, but recognition. Marcus rose slowly, the motion fluid despite the old damage to his left leg and the forearm he kept covered. Every gesture was measured. The slight bend at the knee to avoid strain, the way he kept his scarred arm angled away from the child's line of sight, the quiet half-step that positioned his body between Lily and the open door without making it obvious. Not the economy of a doorman. The economy of someone who had once carried people through smoke and knew exactly how much strength to spend so none was wasted. Nathaniel had seen security personnel before, ex-military, ex-cops, private contractors who moved like they were still scanning rooftops for snipers. Marcus moved like someone who had once scanned hallways for screams. "Why are you here?" Nathaniel asked. The question came out quieter than he intended, almost lost under the distant hum of the building's HVAC. Marcus turned toward him, expression unreadable for a moment. Then the corner of his mouth lifted, just enough to qualify as a smile, faint and private. "Work that lets me help people," he said. Nathaniel waited for more. It didn't come. "That's it," he pressed. Marcus glanced toward Lily, who was now pressing both palms to the glass and counting boats aloud. Satisfied she was occupied, he stepped closer to Nathaniel, lowering his voice so it wouldn't carry. "That's enough," Marcus said, "most days." Nathaniel studied the other man's face. No bitterness in the lines around his eyes, no hunger for payback, just a calm that felt earned the hard way. "You could have done anything after Riverline," Nathaniel said. "Physical therapy, retraining programs, security consulting. Hell, you could have sued for more than the settlement covered. Instead, you're standing in a lobby 8 hours a shift, opening doors for hedge fund wives and their yappy dogs." Marcus gave a small, dry laugh, the first real sound of amusement Nathaniel had heard from him. "You think I didn't try consulting? 2 firms called. Both wanted me to train executive protection teams. Both wanted me to sign something saying I'd never mention CrossTech by name. One offered a 6-figure bonus if I'd pose for their recruitment brochure, 'Real heroes wear our gear.' I told them my hero days ended when the roof came down. The rest is just paying rent." He paused, gaze drifting back to Lily. Here I get to open doors for kids who still believe in superheroes. I get to carry bags so tired parents don't have to. I get to walk elderly residents to the curb when it's raining and their drivers are late. I get to tell a scared teenager waiting for her mom that everything going to be okay and mean it. No cameras, no quarterly reports, just the small, ordinary rescues that don't make the evening news. Nathaniel felt the words settle like stones in his chest. He'd spent years building systems that measured value in EBITDA, market cap, shareholder value. Marcus measured it in the weight of a child's trust, the relief on an old woman's face when someone remembered her name. "You never told anyone who you were," Nathaniel said, not accusing, wondering. No need. The people who matter already know. Marcus nodded toward the window. Your daughter knows I'm the guy who carried her bag without making her feel small. That's enough identity for today. Lily turned then, fox under one arm, and ran back to them. Mr. Marcus, can you come see the boats with me? Daddy says they're going to the ocean, but I think they're going on vacation. Marcus looked at Nathaniel, a silent question. Go ahead, Nathaniel said. I'll be right there. Marcus followed Lily to the window, crouching again so they were eye level with the river. He pointed out a container ship, told her the colors on the stacks meant different shipping lines, explained, simply, patiently, why the tugboats pushed instead of pulled. Lily listened with the rapt attention only children can give when someone speaks to them as equals. Nathaniel stayed by the door, watching. The building's security cameras, small black domes every 20 feet, recorded everything. The doorman crouching, the child laughing, the father standing motionless. But the cameras missed what mattered most. They missed the moment Marcus's scarred hand hovered near Lily's shoulder, not touching, just there, ready if she needed steadying. They missed the way his shoulders relaxed when she laughed, as though some invisible weight had lifted for a few seconds. They missed the quiet understanding that passed between the two men across the room, one who had once signed away accountability and one who had carried it anyway. Most of all, they missed the small, unfilmed truth that had just settled between them. Marcus wasn't here to be redeemed. He was here because some people never stopped answering the call, even when the alarms had long since gone silent. Nathaniel finally crossed the room. He stood behind Lily, hands on her shoulders. She leaned back against him without looking away from the water. Mr. Marcus says the big ships go all the way to China sometimes, she told him proudly. Is that right? Nathaniel looked over her head at Marcus. Marcus met his gaze, sometimes farther. Lily yawned suddenly, the day's travel catching up. Time for a nap, sweetheart, Nathaniel said. She nodded, then turned and hugged Marcus around the knees before he could stand fully. Thank you for being nice. Marcus rested one careful hand on the top of her head just for a second. Any time, Miss Lily. She scampered toward the guest room, calling for the nanny. Marcus straightened. I should get back downstairs. Nathaniel extended his hand, not a handshake of business, something simpler. Marcus took it, firm, steady, no tremor. Thank you, Nathaniel said again, not just for today. Marcus held the grip a beat longer than necessary. Don't thank me yet, Mr. Cross. I'm still here tomorrow, and the day after. He released the hand, gave a small nod, and walked toward the door. When he reached it, he paused, hand on the knob. One thing, he said without turning. Yes. Next time Lily wants to count boats, let her come down to the lobby. I'll bring her hot chocolate from the coffee cart. No charge. Nathaniel smiled, small, real. I'll remember that. Marcus stepped into the hallway. The door closed softly behind him. Outside, the Hudson kept moving, slow, inevitable, carrying its freight of memory toward open water. Inside, Nathaniel listened to his daughter humming to her fox. And for the first time in years, the past felt less like a debt and more like a door someone had left open. That night, Nathaniel reviewed old files. He found the denial letter. He found his signature. The next morning, Marcus arrived for his shift to find Nathaniel waiting. I was wrong, Nathaniel said, and I'm fixing it. The offer wasn't money alone. It was restoration, medical coverage, a leadership role in safety training across cross-deck properties, and public acknowledgement. Marcus hesitated. I don't want charity. This isn't charity, Nathaniel replied. It's accountability. Weeks later, the elevator hummed again. Marcus stood taller, not because of a title, but because his work mattered. Lily waved as they passed. Nathaniel finally understood. True power isn't in what you build, it's in who you lift when the stairs are long.